All right. Hello, everybody out there. We're so excited to be with you. And I know Paul wanted to start with a very important message about today.
Yeah, so we wanted to start out with a tribute to our veterans. And I was looking for inspiration last night in the wee hours of the night. And this
All right. Hello, everybody out there.
And this quote really stood out to me. And it said, "May we think of freedom not to do what we please, but the opportunity to do what is right." And I think in the situation that we're in right now, it's sometimes hard to remember that wearing a mask is for others and social distancing is for others, but it's really our duty as Americans, we believe, to protect each other and to unite and to heal. And so I wanted to shout out to some veterans in my life. My dad was in the Air Force. My brother Jeff was in the Army. We have our nephew Brooks, and then my brother and sister-in-law Wayne and Penny. And we wanted to give you a special shout out today. And thank you for your service. And I think there's some others here that would like to shout out.
Hi, I would like to shout out Devane Berg, who's a childhood friend of mine, and he was a member of the Marine Corps. So thank you for your service.
Very cool. Anybody else?
I actually shout out all of us at once. Woo!
Yeah, you go, Starr.
I was just going to shout out to Connie Hamilton's son, Luke, who's in the Marines as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Luke.
A great friend of myself and my husband, Andy Anderson, who's currently actually an assistant principal in a charter school in South Jersey, I think near Camden. He served, so we appreciate him today and every day.
Anybody else?
I've got my good buddy Chris Carlisle out there. I know he follows a lot of this, very interested in education from the outside, so I hope he's having a great day.
So we just wanted to do some quick introductions, and probably people don't know who I am, but I'm Paul Bloomberg. I'm the CEO of the Core Collaborative, and also an author of Leading Impact Teams with my friend Barb and Peer Power with lots of friends. And then I'll just let you each introduce yourself. Starr, you want to go?
Sure. Starr Sackstein. I am currently with the Core Collaborative as well, but I taught in New York City schools for 16 years. And then I was the leader of the humanities department on Long Island. And I've written some books too. Hacking Assessment, Teach Students to Self-Assess, and coming up soon, Assessing with Respect with ASCD. So I'm pretty excited about that.
And that book has, it's really around SEL and assessment intertwined together, right? Yeah, so we'll be talking a little bit about that today. And Isaac, you can go next, and then we'll save our favorite teachers for last.
Yeah, save the best for last. I'm Isaac Wells, Director of Professional Learning, joining from the mountains of North Carolina, and just so honored to work with this amazing group, making a difference so that our kids at home can learn at the level they would if they were with us, or better.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this while showering and cutting myself a billion times shaving today. But I was thinking that Danielle and Latoya are two teacher crushes I have. And everyone knows that I have my husband Tony in the other room. But you get these crushes on teachers, when you work with them for so much. And they're two teachers that have risen to the top. And when we were thinking about writing this toolkit, these two teachers came to mind immediately, just because there was this attraction. And I know it's kind of funny, but it's true. But Latoya, if you could, I know. But Latoya, if you could introduce yourself, it would be great. And then Danielle.
Thank you, Paul. So hi, everyone. My name is Latoya Yakital, and I've been teaching for roughly 9 years, and I've taught both at the elementary and middle school level to a diverse population of students. And my number one focus, as always, and thank you, Paul, for this, is that I want to empower my students to be assessment-capable learners. Right? That is my number one goal. And just thank you for the opportunity to work on this project and to be a part of this panel. So thank you.
And thank you for allowing me to beat you up all summer. We'll talk about that in a minute. Danielle?
My name is Danielle Dicapua. I'm teaching for a little bit over 13 years. I've taught in both Brownsville, Brooklyn in District 17, and now I've been teaching in my home district, District 31, Staten Island. I recently went and became certified in school building, school district leadership, and I'm a licensed peer collaborative and model teacher through the DOE, always building upon expanding my vision, student empowerment, student ownership, and just, I love my students, but when it's time to work, it's all business. I believe in every single one of them.
I've seen it.
Yeah, and I've been
right.
in both of their classes and watched how amazing they are with their students. And these are two teachers and everyone on this, on what is this called? Facebook Live today are all incredible teachers. I mean, I've been in Isaac School in North Carolina and have learned so much from Starr. But, you know, Danielle and Latoya, like, they believe without a doubt that every kid can achieve at high levels. And it's not a joke for them. Like, they really believe it and it happens. And I think when we think about efficacy and the power of intercollective efficacy, they really embody what that means, that they believe that their kids can do it, and they do. So with that, we were all kind of talking before this, which I think it's not scripted, so sorry, everyone. But we were all like kind of laughing about the feedback that Danielle and Latoya were given, and Isaac's really used to it. Starr is the one that gives feedback to me, so I think I'm like getting used to it. But, like they went through the ringer this summer in developing the toolkit, and Isaac is used to my feedback. But this whole experience has been about feedback, and the whole Empowered Learner Toolkit is all about how do we give better feedback to kids so they can progress and grow. And so why don't you talk a little bit, designers, about what it feels like to get feedback in the learning process and like how that felt, and it could be good or bad. But I think it might be a kind of a fun story because we were all cracking up about it before we started today.
So if I can say that I walked into this thinking that I was really, 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 really good at this. And then after the feedback, I'm like, whoa, okay. So what I had to do is pretty much execute a growth mindset, if you will. You know, I am learning, I am a student, I will get through this, the power of yet, I can do challenging things. And because of all of this, and Paul, by the way, the great feedback that you're giving, because we need to do that for our kids as well, right? We need to give them specific feedback, and we also have to make sure that our kids understand the power of yet and also using and applying the growth mindset strategy. So it was challenging, but I have to say that I learned a lot tremendously, and I'm actually executing it now in my lessons and in front of my students. So thank you so much for this.
Oh man, I always worried that I was too harsh, and remember talking you both off the cliff a couple times because I love you so much. But I think when the learner knows that you have their back and that you know that they care about them,
Right.
I think it can be direct. And I think Starr could speak to that after Danielle talks, because I mean, that's Starr's specialty as well. Go ahead, Danielle, how did it feel this summer?
So working in a school within a district where teacher voice is valued definitely sets you up to feel like you can go out there and you can create, and you know that you'll be valued. Feedback does not mean that the product that you're putting out there is subpar. It's the same way that we're giving feedback to our kids. My children are brilliant. They're still getting feedback from me every day, because feedback is how we learn, how we grow, and how we become more successful. We were all ever changing on the scope of this project, changing it as we went to improve. Revision is how you improve. So this is how we all develop. We are learners too. And in this process, I thought I was coming in, same as Latoya said, like an expert. But I have to remember, I'm coming in as a learner, and I certainly learned a tremendous amount, and it was every step was valued.
And me too, I changed my mind about how many times. Like no, we're gonna do this. No, we're gonna do this. But I think like for me, it was the collaboration that like to have other folks to beat ideas around with, and knowing that you're going to be the ones using it. Like you were so invaluable to this. And Starr's now working on the middle school one, and I haven't even had a chance to really take a look at that. And I want Isaac to speak to this idea of feedback too. But Starr, just speak about feedback grading. Just be Starr.
So, I think when it comes to feedback, and like, I'm really vibing with Latoya here, because I think we could talk a good game a lot about giving feedback, but receiving constructive feedback it's hard. It's really hard work. And when you have a lot of it to receive, sometimes I know, like with some of my struggling learners, for example, I really started being very strategic about how much I gave them and when I gave it to them, and how much of it was balanced with positive and validating feedback so that they didn't feel discouraged while they were moving through it. And I think that that's really the thing, because I mean, we are all learners. And I know that when I dumped my last manuscript in my editor's lap, for example, I was done. As far as I was concerned, I had spent as much time as I wanted to spend on it. And, it's like, even as a writer who spends a lot of time doing that, when someone else has fresh eyes and a reader looks at something, that's invaluable feedback right there. It might be so clear in my head, but that doesn't mean it's so clear on the page. And the ultimate goal is to be able to do something really, really well so that other people can do it as well. So for us to model what it's like to get that constructive feedback, share the challenges that we face, the doubts we feel about ourselves as learners when it's not perfect, but still kind of move through. And then afterwards have this opportunity to say, I'm so much prouder of the work that came from this experience, because I went through the 5 stages of grief while I was getting that feedback to get to the end. Now I love it after, so it's so important.
Allison, our designer, put a bunch of feedback on the top of the field guide, and I was just finishing yesterday, and I saw it, and I went into a tailspin. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, I can't take this right now. It's like literally at the text of it say, wait till it's done, because I can't literally do it right now.
Yeah.
I just need to finish. Isaac has been the victim of my feedback. And Isaac's really taken up the slack, because as Latoya and Danielle, we thought we could get a lot more done, but I think we were prototyping as we went. And then the school year started, and then it became clear with the situation that you're in that there's no way. So then Isaac and Starr jumped on, and other consultants that will come back together in other Facebook Live. But Isaac, go ahead. Talk a little bit about feedback regarding this process around the toolkit for you.
Yeah, ditto to everybody. But one of the things that this process and other things like this that are challenging remind me of a lesson that Paul maybe unintentionally taught me, but like 7 or 8 years ago, he came to my district into this awesome session on like coaching moves and stuff. And then he said, now I really want feedback on this, but I don't want it right now, because it's like his new creation. And it was an awesome session. And I thought, it's okay for us to say that. And I think like through this process, there have been times when like Paul and I were on maybe last week, and I said, actually, I don't even want to, not for feedback, but I don't even want to talk about it now. Like I'm in a groove. I need to just keep going. And sometimes like we need to teach our learners, and Stacy's on here saying, this has to start with our youngest learners, our kinders. They need to know when to ask and when to say, you know what? I just handed the manuscript. Call me in a week.
No, and I think if we can remember how that feels, then we take those feelings and we are more empathetic to our learners. And like what I always do with kids is I always ask them, do you want a pointer? And then they'll say, and they'll always say yes, which is really funny. Because when you ask them, they'll say yes. I'm like, well, how many? 1 pointer, 2? Oh, I'm like, okay. So then you give them to them. But I think like in terms of Starr's book, that is the respectful thing to do. But when you ask them, people are more likely to receive it if you ask. So like, I think when you give people feedback when they're not interested in getting it, it's not heard anyway.
Yeah, right.
I also
In
think
academics and in life.
Yeah, so true.
Latoya.
I also think people are more receptive to getting feedback when they realize that it's a tool for support and growth, and not look at it as criticism. Because if I feel as if you're criticizing my work, then I'm shutting down, right? I'm not listening and I'm not growing as a result of that. So it's very important that we differentiate the two.
Yeah, and
I'm so glad you said that, man.
Go ahead,
I was
Starr.
just going to say, I specifically never used the word criticism. Like, aside from warm and cool feedback, I always called it constructive feedback, because the goal is to help you achieve more, to help you improve, to grow. So even just the language we use when we're saying something that's critical, we have to think of it as constructive, not as something negative. It's something that's going to help us grow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to jump around in questions because I think it opened up an idea around that you have to have this relationship. Like, I had these teacher crushes on these two wonderful teachers, and Isaac, I was in his school, I don't know how many days for years.
Yeah.
And Starr and I have developed a really good relationship over the last year or so. But I think like the toolkit really gets to that idea that there is social, emotional, the CASTLE signature practices are woven throughout. And I think that was something that was really important to us in the design process, that we were like thinking about that, especially in the world that we live in now. But I think now we realize that this should have always have been. Yeah. And so I don't know if like Isaac or Starr or anybody wants to jump in and speak specifically about some of the things that we did to integrate the signature practices into the toolkit. We're going to take a look at it in a minute so everyone can actually see an example, but anyone could jump in. But I know Starr just wrote a book on respectful assessment. So I know you have some things to say, and you've been a major, a thought partner for me in this process, as everyone has been. So go for it.
So I think what's really most important is we have to take the temperature of where our kids are before we even design the assessments that we want to be using with them, and understand their readiness for being in a specific place. And I think so often when we think about assessment as testing, that really doesn't honor the dignity of kids and what they know. When we think about performance assessments, when we think about formative assessment, when we think about multiple opportunities for kids to really be showing what they know and then giving them a voice in that process, I feel like we're really honoring who and where they are at those moments, and then we can better serve them so that they are fully becoming. And we're just really there to support. No one's teaching. We're facilitating as they go rather than telling them what to do. I think that whole move in education from kind of keeping the teacher as expert more as, empowering kids to be experts in those spaces and just giving them the freedom to make mistakes and then support them through those mistakes. And I think that SEL piece is a huge part of that experience, because you have to feel safe to be able to make those risks and ask those questions and be wrong. And you have to have a real sense of belonging, as John and Floyd would say with their book, a real sense of being a part of something so that you can take those risks.
Yeah. And then Isaac, do you want to speak to some concrete things that we did in the toolkit to leverage SEL?
Yeah, some of the things are as simple as, showing a visual like a battery scale from bright red to fully charged or plugged in, just to hit on what Starr said, to see, are we ready to learn? And Paula and Stacy have been sharing in the comments, that we need to, when we partner with kids, we need to make sure they are ready for the feedback, they're ready for the learning. And so some things we built in are just checks to say, where's your energy right now? Are you a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5? We show them the fingers. The happy fingers, and and things like that. And then also, Castle does a lot about checking in on your understanding, and not just for the purpose of checking for understanding, but to see how you feel about your understanding. How well do you feel you understand this? Do you need help? And then I know that ties a lot into the built-in formative assessment process we have, which we'll get to.
Yeah, and so there's a self-assessment component that ties directly to the Castle signature practice regarding self-awareness. And then there's the goal setting piece that ties directly to the Castle signature practice regarding self-management. And so as we look at the toolkit in a little bit, we have explicit notes in all of the slides that really get to and teach the teachers in the notes section in a really brief way how the Castle signature practices actually integrate. And then we also have like a tutorial that teachers can listen to and lots of video tutorials. But the next question, and we're kind of jumping around, is I wanted, these questions are more for Danielle and Latoya, but like I think one thing that we really talked about before we started this project over the summer is like, how do we reduce teacher planning time? Because you all had just left the school year unbelievably exhausted. I don't think you had a spring break here in New York. And so you worked through. And so I think that was our biggest problem of practice is like, how do we solve this? And I don't know who we decided is going first. I think Danielle was going first and then Latoya on this, and then we can kind of spring around. But what does this toolkit do to reduce planning time for teachers?
So I can tell you this, and I did get permission from Paul just to share with a few grade level colleagues who have taken a look at some of the tasks in rough draft. And the feedback's the same from them, that everything is right there. So these are things that, along with colleagues, I spent days that turned to months, that turned to years, revising, to get our formative tasks right, to meld them with our core curriculum, and to move forward from there. And this, I feel like everything is there for the educator when there are so many other things to concern ourselves with, especially in the time that we're going through right now.
Yeah.
So the toolkit definitely saves us time, right? So if you're creating a highly effective lesson, let's say, you want to think about the essential question, you want to think about the learning targets, you want to think about the success criteria, you want to think about the focus standards, you want to think about exemplars to show model work, you want to think of the why we're doing this, and so forth. So the toolkit has all of that done, right? So in essence, what you would have to do is just execute the lessons and cater it best to your students. So I know for a fact that this will save a tremendous amount of time because the work has already been done for us.
Yeah, and I think another like bonus to this is that it's gone through so many there's so many eyes on it. There's, we have literacy experts in, our network. We have assessment experts in our network. We have all these resources that when we're at school, we're trying to balance like 10 books and trying to go between them all. And so, and it's true, right? Because there's not a silver bullet book out there. So from my impression, like I've grown a lot as to the why kids are learning it, because we have had the time to actually create something and thinking about all those things before we start. And anybody else that wants to jump in on that, because I've learned a tremendous amount and still am, because it's not done.
I feel like we really peeled back every single layer of what our children are responsible for knowing, what we are responsible for teaching, and that drove every decision that was made. No matter how many times that scope changed, it kept getting, it was constant improvement. It was constant improvement. And as we were talking before this, I know that we're going to sit down and we're going to look at this in 1 year from now and say 10 things that we're going to do to just keep building on things, just keep building on it. But as far as what's out there right now, I mean, this is just, everything is right there. I keep saying it because it's true.
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking we should take a look at it. Because it's like 23 minutes into our little Facebook Live or whatever this is called. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm actually going to take us to And Isaac, I hope this works.
Yeah. I got it.
Okay. So can you all see this?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when I move that, does it move?
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to kind of go through this a little bit. So there is a learning menu that I'm not going to show today. We're going to just focus on the tasks. So there's about 10 to 15 tasks with this literary toolkit that is going to be launched first in grades 3 through 8, 3, 5 this month, and then 6, 8, hopefully by the end of December sometime. We'll kind of trickle it out as it gets done. And we really focused on, basic story structure. If you're Common Core, it'll be standards 1, 2, and 3, but it's really around the story elements and around theme and summarizing. And so in every single state, we have standards that align to that. And then we also have multiple tasks that are built from the progression with prerequisite skills. So for example, if it's 5th grade and kids are really working on universal theme, there's tasks that get to just basic recounts if kids aren't quite there yet, or maybe that are focusing on the lesson the character learned. So there's tasks that are built in the progression as well. And it kind of starts in our awesome designer and our creative team, Allison Cox and her team, created all these really cool icons. And this icon stands for goals. And the first thing is that empowered learners are goal directed. And there's a spot for a teacher to actually record a video and put it in. And you can add it easily with Pear Deck. We're also going to release this with Nearpod. And this is kind of a little cheerleading session. And I love cheerleaders.
Yeah.
So it's true. It's kind of cheerleading the kids that they can actually do it. And it's a little personal touch when kids are working asynchronously. They actually get to take their teacher home with them. And then right here is the learning target, and which is decontextualized, meaning it's the learning target that's aligned to the standard. And then this is what they're doing in context. They're going to do a sociogram. And I'm going to just play a little bit. This is me. It sounds probably a little ridiculous. But what I love about this is the kids can actually take us home with them. Not that they might want to. But I think for a lot of our kids that, parents are working multiple jobs or whatever is going on, that they can hear us at home cheering them on. So this is kind of what I did. Hello, empowered readers. Today we are going to be digging into the learning target regarding paying attention to the relationships between the main character and other characters in the stories that you read. And we're going to be completing a sociogram to prove our learning. Good luck. Yeah. So basically, you'll get this as a teacher, and there's explicit notes on when to add the audio if you want. And with Pear Deck, it's really easy. You click a button and then record yourself. Like I did this literally a half hour before we went on today. And then there's empowered learners know why. This is what Latoya was talking about. And Latoya, you could jump in because this was a big area for growth for you, wasn't it? The why?
Yeah. So Paul, Bings, and everyone else, hello. So usually when I create my lessons, and even when I participated with helping to create curriculum, I'm usually focused on the how. So how am I going to teach students to use certain skills or strategies to be successful and to apply it thereafter? But now the why is coming in the forefront as well. So in addition to the how, students need to know, and teachers as well, the why. Why is this strategy being taught? Why are we doing this? How is it applicable or transferable from what we have just done? So the why is as equally important as the how.
Yeah, and you can see right here, I added audio where I just talk to the kids, and then they write their response right here. If you didn't want to do a written response, you could easily add a flip grid so they could talk it out. And so we really wanted to think about all these different ways to make learning accessible to kids. And, we really forget that we want kids to discover these concepts, right? We don't want to top down teach them. We want them to discover them through this kind of work. And then the next piece is really regarding clarity, and it lays out for the teacher, they can hide this slide, that these are all the different things that we can do. And I just learned today how to add a read aloud to this. And so it'll open up. This is actually, we chose the same mentor text for every single exemplar. So we lower the cognitive demand of the text. to teach the task. And so if kids need to listen to that, they can. And those are all built right in for you.
Thank you, Mom. Narrated by Ryan Oliver.
Pretty cool, huh? And here, this is oh geez, how am I gonna turn it off?
I've had everything.
I don't know how to I learned how to turn it off.
You got it, yeah.
So Danielle, this is like a strategy that you use in your class all the time because I've seen it. And this is where we color code the success criteria and the kids have to look for it and a model. Do you want to talk about that for a sec?
Color coding is a strategy that a colleague of mine actually introduced to me maybe 5 years ago when I came to PS22, and I really don't know, her name is Melissa, by the way, and I don't know how I ever went through a lesson without it. She does use it a lot. She specializes special ed, and she's very well versed in ENL as well. And the strategy works with them, but it works with our kids too. I color code whatever's in the success criteria in a certain color. We do the same thing in the model, and it really just brings a whole new element of clarity into a lesson. And I teach my kids how to do it. And by this time of year, now as well, they're doing this on their own, and it just makes everything crystal clear. It's an excellent strategy for all learners. I use it too.
Yeah. So like I was just messing around with this today. Like this is a new thing that I thought of, like, why are we not doing this right on the slide? So now I'm going to go back to all the slides and we're going to do it. But you know, the thing is kids do learn from models. And then we also left a placeholder here for teachers where they can record a demonstration lesson of them actually completing the task. And then better yet, I know that PS22 has had a lot of luck with this in math, where kids like want to do the demonstration video. So there's places where you can add more models. And then when you get here, kids have to do a quick write. This is a 5th grade test. What did you learn from exploring these models? Then the next thing is really around deliberate practice. And right here are the directions, and there's audio included. And then there's a little resource section if kids need to review the concepts, and it'll take them right to the slide deck there. And then here's they choose their own story from Epic, and I did a little recording there. For this task, choose your own story. You can choose a story from the Epic library. You get the picture here. Oops, I don't know what happened. There we go. So then right here is where they actually do the task after they've read the story, and they can just insert text boxes and answer the text. And keep in mind, they have those exemplars for your parents out there, you know exactly what the kids have to do because there's an exemplar to show you and the kids. And there's actually a family resource guide that we've included too that we're translating in Spanish, and we can also use Google Translate. And then, I don't know, Isaac, if you want to kind of talk through this a bit, or Starr, or both together, that'd be cool.
Yeah, it's so powerful to have those success criteria not only outlined for kids or learners of any age, but to have them be able to focus on one at a time. So now I'm not having to assess myself and say either I'm great at sociograms or I'm terrible at these. I can say, you know what, I always label them correctly, but I've really got to get a little bit of help making sure I describe it accurately. And I don't know what you mean by provide text evidence. I keep thinking I'm doing it and I'm not. So I've got an X on need help for provide text evidence. And now I can set goals with the guidance of my teacher to make sure that I'm working on, you know, my kind of personal growth to the goals that the whole class has. And these simple stoplight rubrics are the best thing I've seen for that.
And keep in mind that we have to teach kids how to do this. So what we've done is we have synchronous lesson plans for when we have our kids face-to-face, or if we're doing live instruction remotely, where we teach kids how to do the task and we front load all of that. It takes about a week before we have them do this asynchronously on their own, where they're practicing on their own. The really cool thing about this is we can gather all this data on a teacher dashboard all in one place. So far we have data regarding the essential question. We have data regarding, can they find the success criteria in the model, which is really good data point, because if they can't find the success criteria, they're certainly not going to be able to complete the test. Then we have their actual response on the task. And then we actually get their self-assessment data as well. And then right here are extra resources that they can go if they want to learn more about characters, thoughts, and feelings, or folks. They're all pre-linked. So they actually get all of these things. And then we have focus strategies. And keep in mind, we teach these in Reader's Workshop and Kids Practice, but then they get a little quick reminder of 2 strategies that they might need to help them be a better learner. And then teachers can record demonstrations of those strategies, and then kids can talk or write about what they learned. So that is just a snippet of this. I don't know where you all went on my screen. But
the metacognitive piece in here is really...
Oh.
Yeah, I don't think you guys have even seen all this.
Not in that detail, but I mean, just incorporating that, like I said, the metacognitive piece. And something came to mind when you were when Isaac was speaking to how the success criteria is broken down into each component. That is really the theme of how this was designed. The standards, we broke them down into, I thought that I was, nailing it with a couple of things here. And we just, like I said before, just peeled back those layers and really got to the bottom of what these children need to know in order to advance. And the way that criteria is broken down is the way the entire tool is set up, really, in essence.
And when you think about how the tool is set up as well, we think about teacher clarity, right? So I feel that it's so clear with the progression and the standards and the learning targets and the task that the teachers understand exactly what needs to be done and how they can possibly do it. Even when you think about the prerequisites, Paul, that you showed, and certain concepts that students would need to know first before they can work independently. So I feel that it's in such a way that it's like failure proof. You cannot fail using this.
Could you speak to us about transferable tasks? Because I think it's a time-saving thing that folks don't really realize, that this toolkit is like not one lesson, lots and lots and lots and lots of lessons, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So, when we think about specific skills that we are trying to teach kids to use, we can't keep giving them new tasks to do over and over again. They really need to have deliberate practice on something that is the same. And if we vary the text that they're using and the complexity of that text, we have an opportunity to let them practice the same thing over and over and over again with different tasks until they have a level of at least proficiency, but hopefully mastery on those specific standards. And something that I really appreciate about these tasks as well is something that Latoya and Danielle were talking about before with the concepts. Too often, we're teaching things assuming kids have a deep understanding of what some of these concepts are, but they don't. And their level of experience, unfortunately, what we end up assessing when we don't have their voice, whether it's through reflection or the self-assessments that they're doing, we make an assumption that they knew what they were supposed to be doing, and then this is what we're getting from them, and they're not there yet. Really, there might be a different thing going on that they might not even understand the concept we're asking them to work with. So something that we really tried to do was ensure that teachers were layering that into the lessons as well, so that kids really were supported.
Yeah, and as they go through the upper grades, there's conceptual lessons where they have the key concepts. That was a struggle that Latoya and I were like toying around with, because as you got through the grades, you realize, like, I was working with a high school kid last year. I think he was a senior, and he was struggling with theme, and the teacher had told me that he had worked on it so much and he wasn't improving. And I said, what is theme? I just said, what is theme? And blank stare, had no idea what it was even. And so all the skill and drill would have never changed that he did not understand what universal theme really was. And as soon as we unlocked that concept, boom, he like progressed so quickly. And so in the upper grades, they're paired tasks. There might be like a plot profile that they have to do. All the concepts from that plot profile, there's a different task to grow conceptual understanding. And so like, we've tried to think of everything, but I think what Danielle said, we probably will, launch it. And we're trying to build a community around this toolkit. We're kind of toying around if we're going to use the impact team Facebook group for that community, or if we're going to build a new one, because we really want teachers to be partners with us. And we want feedback from kids. And we even have a South African pilot going on that as soon as this is done, she's going to take it and her kids are going to give us feedback on it. And so we're really excited about all the partnerships that we're creating with this. Are there any questions out there, Isaac, or comments that have been made? Or are we just doing this to nobody?
No. Hey, at least we're doing it to each other. No, we've got some people jumping on. We got our... Yeah.
Order.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
No, we've got Matt saying that how powerful that idea of reflection is, when we get into that explicit concept instruction, so that we know they understand. Because so often they know these words and they kind of know what they're related to. But if you don't understand the concept, we're all wasting our time. And there's been a lot of people kind of layering on as each of you have shared something. There's been kind of a personal response to it or a shared example. So we've had some good interaction from that.
Yeah, I think go ahead, Danielle.
Just from the one person who just said about conceptual understanding, this is something that I've discussed with colleagues before. I've discussed it with Paul. We focus on this conceptual understanding in math. We want them to have this number sense. They need to know concept. They need to know concepts. And the same is true for literacy. They have to have that foundational layer in order to build and improve their skills.
Yeah, and the best way to teach concepts is not through direct instruction, right? And so it's just like in math where we use inquiry. And I think what happens a lot in literacy is we do everything through direct instruction. And we forget that there's these big building block concepts. Like we were doing some concept mapping at in Kennewick, Washington, where we had character in the middle. And then we had all these concepts that stem from it: static character, dynamic character, flat, round character, major character. Our standards don't even have that in them. So we have to look at our standards and we have to unpack the concepts, because even if you look at the high school standards, it's not broken apart. And Starr and I have had a conversation about, gosh, if kids could come with all that concepts in middle and high, imagine what we could do with them.
I was just going to say, I taught AP in 12th grade, and when the kids got to me in 12th grade, there was such a deficiency generally in their level of really deep understanding of different literary concepts that I feel like in middle school, at least the way it felt by the time they got to me, that the only figurative language kids really knew were simile, metaphor, and personification, because those are the three that are beat to death basically straight through. And unfortunately, there are like 60 other ones that they need to know for AP Lit. And when there's such a focus and there's such a nuance in between what makes some of them different, whether you're dealing with very, very specific nuanced things. And when we want kids to think like writers, to flip it in the other direction, they need to understand the craft, why authors are doing the things they're doing, how they're successful doing it, and then how to replicate it themselves as writers. And I can't overvalue enough this idea of really spending the time showing examples, letting kids explore those different concepts so that they can be successful in the bigger picture, and not just checking boxes that they know a term moving on now.
Yeah, and for us, I mean, Latoya and I and Danielle, we were pushing back and forth, like, is this too much? for fourth and fifth graders, but I'm like, it's not character setting, problem solution, and events. It's exposition, rising action, climax. And that was something that they admit, I didn't teach that before, but we're like, the kids can do it. And they believe they can do it. And so we built the task, and we knew that because they're transferable and they're going to probably do that plot profile task maybe 3 or 4 times with stories that they choose, that they love, you know, like, which I think is really important for agency, that they get to pick, that we know that they'll learn the concepts. And when they hit middle school, they're just going to we're going to be able to accelerate the learning so much more. So I think there's a lot of gifts that we've been given through this horrible pandemic, because we've had some time to stop and think as consultants, because I have to say, like, we all lost our jobs. You know, we were out consulting like crazy, like hundreds of days a year. And I think the biggest gift, although we complain about it a lot, because I'm the first to complain about it, is that we've gotten to be a little think tank. And I really enjoyed the think tank over the summer with the teacher, with Latoya and Danielle, because I think we've thought through things that we never had time to think about when we were consulting.
And I want to add, Paul, as we're unpacking the standards, we definitely saw the deficiency or the deficits as to what, in order for students to be successful at this, what is it that we need to teach them prior? And that's where we came up with certain prerequisite skills. So that was pivotal for me, and it truly, truly helped me now as I'm teaching and creating lessons. So
and to that too, Paul,
go ahead, Starr.
Can I just speak to Latoya? Like, the stuff that you were doing with the 6th grade too is really good for RTI as well in later grades. So, like, let's say you get kids in 7th, 8th, 9th grade who still don't understand a concept. They don't need to know that it was housed before in an earlier grade, but if they need more support, why not use the same task and the same idea from one of the other grade levels to then help get that child up to where we need to be? And I think that is one of the beauties of the flexibility of this as well, is that you really can support learners where they are and move them to where they need to be.
And related to that idea of flexibility, we had this question pop up on Facebook. Does this toolkit work for in-person instruction or only remote learning? And I thought some of you might want to hit that.
The design was that from the very beginning, right? Like, and Danielle, I know you want to jump in too, is that we realized that Pear Deck and Nearpod are going to be such a powerful tool and to make small group instruction even better, because kids can be working on these tasks asynchronously while we're pulling small groups. And so that was the design from the very beginning. And Danielle, you wanted to jump in too.
I was going to say similar to what you just said. Definitely can be used in person, of course. Key for remote, because it has everything that, unfortunately, you know, when they're not in front of us, we can't give it to them, but this fills in those gaps. But in person, it just makes your in-person teaching that much stronger, I feel.
Yeah, the structure is so powerful, and that structure can be adapted to anything.
Yeah. So I kind of want to end, because we've been going for 47 minutes and probably people are sick of us. But I thought, like, we could end by, like, if you had, what's one thing that well, we talked about that already. So what's one wish that you have for the teachers in your building or teachers in general over this next year? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but these are the best kinds of questions. What's one wish? And I will model first, and you can rip mine off if you want. I knew I was going to do this because I didn't want it to be too planned. But I think one wish that I have for teachers and that I need to learn for myself is to walk away and to go for a walk outside, and for me to shower and to take care of yourself, because everyone's going through a lot of trauma with this, and we are all going through a lot of loss, some way more than others. And I think we sometimes don't take the time to grieve those losses and to really think about the losses that we have. I have a really great team and a huge flower arrangement over here that they sent Tony and I, because we went through some family problems over the weekend. And when that came to our door, I think it just showed us how many people that we have in our life that truly have the same values that we do. And so I wish that teachers and principals really take some time away and take care of themselves. Any other wish?
I wish that teachers, I know that I can speak to my own colleagues, my own administration, they have an open-mindedness about them. And I hope that they hold on to that open-mindedness even while we're being faced with these new challenges, and we're in a position where we need to learn new things and we need to learn them quickly. It's urgent because we need to pass them on to our children. Just that spirit remains and that open-mindedness stays with them.
That's pretty cool. Like when we come back, like Melissa, your principal said that about your staff, that now more than ever, you guys are collaborating at levels and your minds are so open. So I think that's such a cool thing as a wish that we keep that disposition when we come back. Anybody else?
And everyone asks for help when they need help.
Yeah.
And I will help if they need help.
That's in mind. So my wish is that for teachers to be kind to themselves, to know that they're not alone in this, and to ask for help. Right? We're not alone, and we need to ask for help when we need it. And this toolkit is one way in which we can get the help that we need, for sure.
Latoya and I helped each other a lot.
Yes.
A lot.
Collaboration.
We were not like text back and forth, like, what are we doing?
Yeah. This is so fun, actually. I'm so glad we're going to do this.
Yeah.
Starr, I have wishes.
So for me, I just hope, kind of building on that too, that we have made a lot of strides, I think. I know from the assessment point of view, so many people have been contacting me about going gradeless in their classrooms now and really shifting their concept of what it means to assess and give feedback. And my biggest wish is that we don't go backward once we go back to normal. Just because you're in person doesn't mean the things that we're learning in this environment aren't better for kids. And I'm not saying that learning remotely is better for kids. As a parent, I'm telling you that it's definitely not the case. But what I do see is that teachers are looking for outside the box solutions to problems that they're having in front of themselves right now. And that openness that you spoke about, Danielle, I think that we really need to embrace that and keep shifting the system so that kids really get what they need in whatever environment we end up in.
Yeah, I think the accessibility features in these platforms, like I had no idea, that we could provide so much access to kids, and like I'm with you, Starr, like completely. Go ahead, Isaac. Take us home.
Yeah, my wish is right on track with everyone's. I wish for every educator to have a learning network like this, and to take advantage of the Core Collaborative Learning Network, because that's what we are. So it's all these amazing people and so many more. So reach out and connect, and like you said, ask for help. Look for new ideas, try new things, and forgive yourself when you're done.
Yes.
Yeah, I think like these relationships that we have here have grown over a long time, and I think the thing that I'm most proud about as the CEO or founder with my husband is that our clients stay with us for so long, and that we get to develop relationships and friendships with teachers. I have hundreds of teachers that I can text and principals that I can text, and I don't know a lot of consulting companies that develop relationships over the long term. And I think it's with those relationships that you saw that we have a lot of fun together. And it's because of the relationships that this thing is we're really hoping that it will change the lives of kids, because I know it's changed the lives of all of us. So with that, I don't know what we need to say if they contact us about it, Isaac. I don't know, what do we usually say?
Yeah, reach out, Isaac at thecorecollaborative.com. Paul at thecorecollaborative.com, or you can check out the website in the comments. Starr at thecorecollaborative.com, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But thank you all for your time and attention. And
let's give a round of applause to the teachers.
Yes. That's what.
Come on, we're clapping.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.